Well, we're actually live now, Jesse. So I will. I'll tell you after.
I think that part's gonna show up in the stream. It's fine.
Yeah, it is. It's fine.
Sorry.
No problem.
Is that good? Yeah, it's worse.
Matthew.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the playback to start so I can pull the link from YouTube. But we're essentially live right now.
To answer your question, Jesse, the long and short of it is they're taking every precaution possible. I feel really good actually working at Apple because you can only really come into the store at all on an appointment basis. And then it's distancing, it's masks, it's gloves, it's everything.
I'm glad you guys are safe.
Absolutely.
All right, let's do it. Welcome everybody to episode 13 of ReignTalks. We're here with Jesse Rosenthal, Izzy Campos, Nico. I still can't say your last name. I don't want to butcher it for the millionth time. But we're here to talk about referees in pandemic, and how you guys are kind of adjusting and what things look like for you. So let's get some introductions for episode 13. All right, Nico, to you.
All right, well, so I am a current board member of District Reign. I've been with the organization since the beginning. I am currently the treasurer. I'm also the referee liaison. It's my hope as a referee liaison, especially, I've been trying to really kind of raise the profile of the referee community, both within our organization and also just among kind of the public to the extent possible, like trying to bridge that gap, I guess, between the referee community and the organization. I've been a referee now, I've lost count how many years, probably 10 years. And I happen to know both tonight's guests, Jesse and Izzy. I've refereed with Izzy numerous times, so I'm really happy they could join us tonight, and I'm looking forward to tonight's talk.
Nico, I think your audio cut out.
I just said that I'm really happy to be that both Jesse and Izzy could join us tonight for the talk. I think it's really important actually to bridge that understanding between like the players, the parents, the coaches, all of that with the referee officials. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Nico, do you want to introduce Jesse and Izzy, or are they flying solo?
I can say a word about each of them actually, because well, I don't want to spend too much time on introductions. I really want to get to the meat of the conversation, discussion. I think it's gonna be a good discussion. But Jesse Rosenthal has been an assigner since 2004. He's been a referee since 1988. He has really worked at all levels of competition with all kinds of all a wide variety of ages. As I mentioned before, I've known Jesse for a long time as well. He is really an excellent mentor to up and coming referees, especially. He was one of the ones actually early on in my own career, like when I was just starting here in DC at least, who managed to kind of show me how I could get more involved in the local referee community, and helped me bring me into the fold as far as like going to tournaments or working different leagues. So I'm really happy that Jesse could join us tonight. Izzy, I've known for a very long time as well. He's been a soccer referee since spring of 2011, and he started his career kind of at the grassroots level, and I've seen him work his way up the ranks gradually, and now he's gotten assignments as doing USL Championship, USL 2. So both these guys, I've known them a long time. I would trust their judgment under pretty much any situation, and I'm very happy they could offer their perspective on what it's like to be a referee and what it's like, especially, with the pandemic and everything going on now.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys for coming on the show.
Of course.
So let's start to just kind of get into the meat of refereeing currently. What is it looking like for you guys post current pandemic at the moment?
Just okay. I think I'll start. Jesse, have you been on the field? Just watching games or observing, mentoring referees?
I've actually, yes.
Okay.
So we shut down pretty much everything in the DC metro area around 18 March. And there was absolutely no soccer that was being played aside from the professional levels until about July 3rd. And that's when MLS was coming out of the bubble, and that started to loosen up things here. We actually played EDP, which is a top travel league over the summer. Is a travel league for youth, rather, not for adults. And we did that under very, very tight conditions. The spectators were all banned. We put the spectators all in their cars overlooking the soccer fields. So that kind of made it easy to not have to worry about social distancing. In addition to that, the players and the coaches were all masked while they weren't playing on the soccer fields. Everyone was very social distancing, cognizant of where they needed to be when they were going to and from. And I actually had some input into the return to play protocols for the league. And my suggestion was to make sure that everybody was not making jokes about COVID, because what we don't want to do is to have somebody who's lost a loved one or a family member or a friend hear something going the wrong way, and all of a sudden the emotional temperature of the match gets really, really high, really, really fast. And it's no longer about soccer, it's about avenging the last comment that was made. Since then, we are now probably in full swing on the youth side for soccer. The adult side has dropped off a cliff. We are not seeing, I think this coming weekend, I'm finally seeing some adult games that are on the schedule, but it's probably about 30% of what it is with normal. Most of the adult leagues in the area on the amateur side are not playing. And my personal speculation for why that's happening is because no one's scholarship is at risk. They're not demonstrating, the players aren't demonstrating the capabilities for coaches. And we also have a player profile that they want to make sure that we're not rushing onto the field. As much as we miss soccer, we're also being cautious.
Jesse, can I just ask? I'm curious to know, as far as, like, for example, the distancing, having those parents observe from the car. How did you get that communicated out? And was that something that the league was responsible for? Did you kind of share that responsibility? How did that work out? I mean, maybe parents are giving you any kind of problems, or has everybody been pretty compliant? I'd be very curious to kind of hear how that sort of played out.
Well, it worked out pretty well because the communication to the clubs was, we're trying to find a way to get everybody back onto the soccer field. And so if you remember, and I'm kind of wary of drawing parallels, but right after September 11th, people were very, very tentative about restarting their lives. There was a pre 9/11, there was a post 9/11, and again, I'm trying not to be insensitive to the people who suffered during September 11th, but people were willing to accommodate and bend over backwards. And I think that since then, unfortunately, not every soccer field lends itself to everybody sitting in their cars being able to watch the game from your cars. And so I think that the attention to social distancing is decreasing a little bit. I also had some input with talking with the leagues and saying, how can we make this work? Unfortunately, every jurisdiction in the DC metro area seems to have its own idea about what safe looks like. So in Montgomery County, for example, right now, my cat's not enjoying the discussion. In Montgomery County right now, there are requirements. Not only are spectators and coaches supposed to wear masks, but they're also requiring every player to wear a mask while they're playing. Mm-hmm. And that is actually not very popular because of the aerobic constraints of trying to exercise at a high level while wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. And so I've seen a number of teams trying to relocate their matches out of Montgomery County. Tournaments have been canceled for the most part, just because there's a concern for how do you ensure safety in a tournament environment when you have a lot of people who aren't part of your club family coming in and holding people accountable for maintaining social distancing and masking is much more difficult to police. And the referees are not allowed to go ahead and be the enforcers of return to play guidelines.
So those enforcers would be who then?
It's supposed to be club personnel. So I was in Fredericksburg this past weekend, and they actually require temperature checks before kickoff for every player that wanted to come onto this field.
Wow.
But in Arlington, every player's family is on their honor to report whether or not the kid is symptomatic that day. And so there's a different patch of jurisdictions and different ways that they're approaching it. And the regulation in the soccer community is very loose, although the more responsible league stakeholders are all being very, very careful about not being the ones whose lax attitudes all of a sudden lead to a fresh bout of outbreaks, and we have to really have to dial back into social precautions again.
Yeah.
And have the referees, from the referee side of things, have they kind of responded positively to a lot of these changes? I mean, a lot of people out there who may be watching may not know all of the responsibilities that referees have to do, not only, of course, during the game. I mean, during the game, most people know, what we're supposed to be doing, but pre-match things, post-match, having to fill out game reports for whatever may have happened during the match. So I guess my question to you is, are the referees responding well to the precautions that are in place now? And what kind of changes have been made in how they typically go through their pre-game, game, and post-game procedures, basically?
Sure. How about I start that answer, and then I'll throw it to Izzy, so that way he can speak to the games that he's done so far this season. Mm-hmm. Or if that's not the case, he can say, Jesse, I have no idea, and then I'll have to keep talking. We've had a number of referees who are taking the fall off, either because they have health conditions that are either diabetics, people who have respiratory conditions, if they're living with people, with parents or with kids who have suppressed immune systems, it's not worth it to them to go back on the field. And so that's affecting the number of referees that are available. We have had 0 referee classes since March, which means that we are behind the curve in terms of generating new referees who will help police the game to combat the normal turnover, which is typically about 30% a year. The referees, by and large, are not grumbling about having to wear masks. What's different that I have seen is that we typically have a I'll share my flags from one game to the next, and that simply isn't happening right now. Typically, people would have a pregame discussion. I think that those pregame discussions about how they're going to handle certain match situations have shortened, because speaking at length while you're wearing a mask is not comfortable for a lot of people who aren't accustomed to it. And then I think that the final point that I would make is that the referees want to get back on the field just as much as the players do. For a number of referees, this is an important source of income to supplement whatever it was that they were doing their day jobs. And all of a sudden, if no one's playing soccer, well, you don't need a referee to help them. And so there is some economic anxiety about getting back on the soccer field if and when there are safe conditions. And, for them, the risk tolerance factor is worth getting back on the pitch.
Thanks. Izzy, how often have you refereed this season at all, post-COVID, if you refereed? And the kind of things that Jesse's talking about, I'd be curious to hear if that's been your experience too. In particular, I want to especially draw attention to one thing that I thought was interesting that he mentioned, which is the discussion about match situations. One of the things you well know that we discuss when we're before the game is what could go wrong, what kind of things we're looking for, what kinds of things could go wrong during a match. So yeah, if you can offer your insight, on what your experience has been so far.
I've been doing a non-sanctioned league called FXA over the summer. They started off, I would say, late July. Basically, there were no spectators allowed. Everyone on the bench had to be wearing a mask. Players, coaches included, referees were also instructed to show up to the field, walk onto the field 10, 15 minutes before kickoff to get the game started, to limit the number, to social distance.
And when you say non-sanctioned, maybe you can explain what does that mean for most people? They may not know the difference between sanctioned and non-sanctioned.
So the league I'm doing, it's not sanctioned by the United States Soccer Federation. It's not recognized. It's not a recognized league. Justin, you can help me out answering that question. Actually, is there more to it than that?
There is. So, in everyday terms, U.S. soccer has a sanction that it places over regulated fields and leagues. And there are other leagues that are participating that don't subscribe to that sanction. So the officially trained referees are, for the most part, are not urged to support the unsanctioned leagues. And so if you're driving down, a good example, there are some pickup fields where people are playing loosely and they don't have any referee in uniform, where it's just some guy with a white t-shirt or maybe like a bicycle vest with a stopwatch, who kind of looks like he's just got off of a construction site. That would be an example of an unsanctioned league. But I mean, there's professionalism expectations for the sanctioned leagues that typically, not always, but typically outpace what's expected and required for the unsanctioned leagues. On the other hand, in Arlington, there's the Bolivian Soccer League, where you would be the only reason it's not a professional league from looking at it is that it's not in a stadium where they have gigantic community output and everybody's having fun and yelling at each other, and the uniforms all match, but they don't really care about the insurance aspects of it. So it's working for them as a community.
Okay.
I think that's
fair. I didn't mean to interrupt
you.
No worries.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for answering the question completely in its entirety, Justy. So last week was the first week I got back to doing youth soccer, which is sanctioned. It was CCL. So the referee crews kind of got in and out of where we had our gear. We had masks on during the pregame, after the game, during halftime. One of us chose to wear a mask during while he was reffing. So that's basically up to us if we want to go that way or not. There were a couple of players that were also wearing masks voluntarily. But I agree that a lot of us just want to be out there, stretch our legs. We do this not so much for the pay, but because we enjoy it. So, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to get back on the field as well early on. Yeah, to keep the rust off. Also, there's a bit of camaraderie that comes with that you have with your fellow referees, and you do miss seeing them. Yeah. Nico, when are you going to be on the field?
That's a really good question. I need to get back out there. Actually, I've been wanting to get back out there. I don't really have a good excuse, to be honest. Mostly it's just, been the stresses of the pandemic, obviously. Also, my other obligations to work, to life. As Jesse mentioned, for a lot of people, this is not the regular day job for referees. But in fact, I would guess, and Jesse, you can maybe back me up on this or not, but I would guess for most people, this is just purely a side thing to their normal day job as far as supplementing income or that kind of thing. I mean, this is not something that most people do day in and day out, basic refereeing. So, I mean, that would be my excuse for not getting on the field. It's not my day job, day in and day out. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but Jesse, I don't know if you can attest to that one way or the other.
There are people out on social media, Nico, whose profiles are Uber driver / soccer referee. That's their jobs, or they're, especially with the number of people who have been laid off. We're talking about millions of people out of work, and this is a way for people to get some money coming into their households while their day job situations may be working themselves out. We obviously are missing a lot of businesses. And so this is will be a source of income for people. And I think that the participation numbers tend to go up the worse the overall economic conditions of the country they are.
And just to be clear, I don't want to be insensitive to those people who are depending on that as income, but I think just generally, at least during normal times, pandemic times, maybe a very different situation. But I think, just speaking generally, it's my impression for most people during normal times that it's not their primary source of income.
No, that's right.
I wanted to say, but that's not to be insensitive. Yeah, it's not to be insensitive to anyone who is watching that may be depending on this income.
No, I agree, Nico.
Izzy, just to get back to you for a second, during that match that you had last week, what was the discussion like as far as match situations? If you could speak to that.
Maybe I wasn't sensitive to the situation we were dealing with, but it was a regular pregame. We just talked about like a regular pregame. How it was just a regular pregame. Like we hit the basic points. I didn't really mention any protocols that we should take because there were parents allowed on the field, on the sidelines. So everything seemed like it was going back to normal for the match. It was nothing different than a match that we had a year ago.
Okay.
Do you guys think,
Jesse,
as referees, do you guys think it's maybe too soon or too accelerated in terms of where we are with the pandemic and how quickly we're reintroducing families on the field and things like that?
So Matt, that's a fair question. There are definitely people who think that it is too soon. And that's one of the reasons why the adult leagues are taking them offline. There are also 2 youth leagues that are just not playing this fall. That's the Old Dominion Soccer League and the Suburban Friendship League. And a lot of rec programs have scaled back just because a lot of clubs are wary about having volunteer coaches out there. And again, no one wants to be the focal source for restarting a fresh outbreak of the disease. So I think the caution is it should be okay. Personally speaking, I don't think it's a good idea to have soccer tournaments at all right now, for the specific reasons that you don't see any sort of regulation of tournaments in terms of the number of games per day. And the tournament scheduler's natural inclination is to try to pack in as many games as possible. But when you're doing that, it forces the arrival of players from the next game to be mingling with the players who are leaving from the previous game. You have very little control over spectators walking to and from fields that are not necessarily adjacent to parking lots. And you have all these people walking together. Some people, are thinking, oh, look, it's outdoors, so it's safe to be without a mask on. Oh, well, I don't have to put a mask on until I'm closer to the field. And I just don't think that we have a social consensus right now about what is and what is not appropriate behavior. So the instructions that I've given to the referees that I work with is that whatever it is that the jurisdictions are doing, we need to be setting the right example. And that includes wearing masks, including modeling social distancing. And if there are some people whose sensibilities think that masking is overkill, we don't want to have that coming from somebody wearing a U.S. soccer referee uniform. So when I was in Fredericksburg last weekend, there were very, very strict limits on spectator behavior that were not necessarily uniformly followed. I mean, we were all masked, but some people coming from the parking lots were not. There were spectators watching the adjacent basketball games who were not masked, but the people who were 10 feet away from them, where their backs turned watching the soccer game, were. So it's just, we're not there yet.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fantastic answer. And I think you threw in some really useful things in terms of, how you as an assigner have changed and what you have to communicate to referees going into these situations. Because I can imagine that they can be kind of pretty touchy just from behavior that we've seen from people going into Walmart. And now we've added a youth sport act to that kind of situation. So I can imagine that puts you guys in a strange position.
I would say that from an assigner's perspective, the one major change is that if somebody said to me before the pandemic, hey, I woke up this morning with a headache, I'm not feeling my best, my game is tonight, do you think that you can find somebody to referee in my place? And pre-pandemic, I might have said, well, let's see how you're feeling in a couple of hours. And if you're still feeling sick at that point, then we'll go ahead and make a switch. My mindset is 180 degrees different right now. If somebody tells me that they have a headache, if they're running a fever, if they're, possibly exposed to somebody, they went to they got contacted by a contact tracer. Last week I told somebody on Tuesday, you're not getting back on any assignments that I'm giving you until you've had positive tests for the last 2 weeks, just to get through the incubation period. Because I don't, like as I said, everybody else, we don't want to be the source of an outbreak. And I would rather be erring on the safe side as opposed to putting people at risk. Yeah. We lost 5 soccer games this past weekend because of infection on the player side.
Wow.
And nobody's happy about that. But again, we'd rather make sure that we're not taking risks. In one case, there was a kid whose college said, we're sending all the students home. The college kid comes home. She hugs her little sister. before the college kid got tested. The little kid is practicing with her teammates all week. On Thursday, the college kid tests positive for COVID. And so, out of abundance of caution, the league canceled the younger siblings' games for the weekend and said, you know what, we're not rolling the dice on this. A month ago, there was an EDP travel game where one of the teams was coming from Maryland, one of the teams was coming from Virginia. And on Thursday, I was contacted by one of the club managers saying that, you know, we've got 3 of our players who are sick, but the rest of them should be okay. We're just trying to look for some guest players to fill in on those rosters. And I just put up my hand. I said, no. Why don't we just reschedule this and make sure that everybody is healthy as opposed to taking those kinds of risks? And so far, nobody's gotten mad at me.
That kind of brings me to another question on how far are you guys willing to travel? So like, Izzy, what's the difference in travel for you now?
So a lot of the games, they're trying to keep it local, trying to keep the referees local to the game. If I'm commuting by myself, I don't think I'm comfortable with traveling to, say, Richmond or Haymarket for a game. If it's me by myself in my vehicle, right? From carpooling, I would rather not carpool at all. So the distance, I don't think it's really changed too much if I'm commuting by myself. But I am aware that a lot of signers are trying to keep the referees local to the game.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people.
Yeah,
what I mean by that is the fundamental point that what Izzy is speaking to is correct. How they're getting to the field is more important than how far they're going to get there. If you're going to a tournament, for example, and that's being played in Fredericksburg, Richmond, Montgomery County, and the easiest way that you guys might have gotten to that field in the past is by renting a van, I would say that a lot of referees are uncomfortable with the idea of doing that just because breathing in the same air with a lot of people that you're not ordinarily living with is the problem. But, you know, we actually got some initial guidance saying that we should do what we could to allow parents and children referees to go to the fields together to be assigned to the same matches, spouses who referee together to go to the same matches. And I just don't do that in general. But I think that the fundamental point, again, is the teams that I have seen have rejuggled their schedules so that they do not have to stay overnight, because staying in a hotel is a fresh area of risk that they don't want to have to deal with.
Right.
And when they stay at those hotels, you know, the complimentary breakfast buffet at the hotel is no longer there because it's not safe from the hotel's perspective to serve that breakfast and to have people milling about unmasked. And it's just a whole level of safety that they've cut back on as well. So ECNL, which is a very prominent travel league, overhauled their schedule for this fall so that at least in the fall piece, none of the teams are going to have to actually stay overnight for matches. Whereas in the past, you might have seen teams coming up from North Carolina who played against Braddock Road one day and then played against Loudoun the next. And they've pushed those overnight possible games into the spring in the hopes that we'll be in a better place from a health standpoint. And if we're not there, then they'll take a fresh look at solutions. But again, I think that a lot of this is just mindset.
Nico, what's your next
Jesse,
question?
yeah, no, I was gonna say, Jesse, I wonder if we could maybe shift gears a little bit. No one really knows what the next season is gonna look like, or what the next week is gonna look like, what next month. But I wondered if I could ask you just to kind of give us your best guess, looking into a crystal ball, when you think people in DC might be able to play, for example, or what you think the leagues will, when the leagues will start opening up more. I mean, do you think that everybody's going to hold off and just wait to see if we're better in a place in spring, like you said, or do you think there's a pressure to keep trying to open up?
That's a really good question, Nico. I think that the futsal season, which if you're not familiar with it, it's a variant on indoor soccer, is going to disappear this winter. I would be stunned if that's a possibility. I believe that that's going to have an impact on futsal complexes. So there's one out in Manassas, there's one out in Centerville, there's a couple in DC as well as in Maryland, and I think that nobody is going to want to risk that for the same reason why indoor basketball this winter is not going to be, the gyms are not going to be crammed with people.
Yeah.
I do think that I am hopeful that people continue to shy away from tournaments until we're in a better place. Health-wise, I think that smaller scale events is probably going to be the mode going forward. I think that the other interesting piece of this is because of the closures and the impact on higher education, that how is this going to affect the college sports recruiting? And the people who are taking gap years instead of going to college is going to change the dynamics, where those people are going to want to go ahead and, go kick the ball around. So maybe we'll see more informal exercise like that. But I don't really have a crystal ball that's going to tell me when people are going to be playing in mass again. But again, I hope that people are smart about how they do it, so that way we're not going backwards in the progress that we've made. But I think that right now the numbers that I would give is we're currently at about 30% of adult leagues that are playing right now, because they don't have the pressure of playing for college scholarships. They're not playing for professional tryouts. And I think that in a small percentage of cases, there may be some youth clubs whose bottom line took a massive hit with the cancellation of the spring 2020 season. And so they are trying to find a way to get some money in the door so that way they don't have to lay off their coaches, who are also trying to find out how to stay afloat in this economy.
Izzy, if I can turn to you for a second. One thing that I've been really impressed by for as long as I've known you is how you've progressed actually as a referee in terms of the advancing with the level of competition of the games that you get, and just your discipline of trying to improve your craft. One of the things that we have to do as referees is get regular assessments. We have to have senior referees or assessors come out and observe our matches and things. Those are often hard to come by in a normal time.
Yeah.
Because everybody's looking for assessments and that kind of thing. Everybody is looking to get to the next level. Have you noticed any difference as far as that, as far as requesting an assessor, or and then also the second part of that is maybe you could just also, for us, for anybody who's watching, kind of describe how it's been to actually progress to where you are now from where you started.
Right. So I'll start by answering your first question. A lot of the assessments that a lot of good games that are accessible are given over the summer. There's CCL U23. There's USL 2, which a few of us can get like an assessment online, or even a center. which I was fortunate enough to have last year. Those leagues are basically canceled. Right now we an assigner said that we have like a few UPSL games, and I was fortunate enough to pick one up. And I sent a request to have it assessed, as soon as I got the game. So yes, it's gonna be hard to pick up assessments, but they are being flexible with the recertification process for next year. So it might be difficult to upgrade this year, given the number of accessible games that we have. But the recertification process will be a little bit more lenient. So I don't know what the requirements are exactly. I think I heard somewhere that your 2020 certification counts for 2021. Either way, I want to get assessed. I want to be seen. I want to make sure I'm doing things right. Improving as a referee. Your second question was, have I progressed over the years?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, if you could just kind of speak to some of the things, some of the challenges you've faced trying to get to the next level. What are some of the things you've done to actually get to the next grade? For example, what does that normal process look like for somebody who wants to become a better referee and get, go further?
So I would say I got lucky. I found some people who wanted to push me, who said, you should talk to this guy. He's going to give you better. He's going to give you good games. Or, hey, you're not, you're doing this wrong. You can prove this. You can prove this way through these games. I think a lot of my progress came when someone opened my eyes to the School of Excellence. I was fortunate enough to have two great mentors who in like a classroom setting showed us like, these are some things that you got to think of when you're reffing, your positioning. This is where you should be standing. This isn't a rule, but like it's just a suggestion, and it's really helped out a lot. There are little tricks that I was shown that really make a difference in the 90 minutes that you're reffing the game. So just the fact that I was instructed to sign up for this School of Excellence helped out a lot. It's really improved me. The first 3 months, I thought I was a completely different referee than it was when I first started the School of Excellence. Fortunately, that's been put on hold for now. Getting exposed is a huge factor. You got to grow as a referee. Kind of, it helps to see different styles from across the country. I think we did. We went to Delaware together. It was Jersey a couple years ago for what was the tournament again? Remind me.
I think it might have been Region 1, maybe one of the Region 1 tournaments.
Yeah, it was
both teams from around the region.
So that helps. We had some great assessors that weekend, right? Just getting different feedback from from assessors who aren't in your area helps a lot as well. And just being seen, challenging yourself. I remember in the same summer, I picked up a PDL line, NPSL line, and used a kicker's fourth official in the same summer. And I thought that was a really neat experience being a first. It was a first for me at each one of those levels, and each game was assessed. So I was like on my toes that summer. Yeah.
Jesse, I know you mentioned, and Izzy mentioned as well that about the classes. Can you, what do the classes look like now? And I do know that some of the certification that they extended some things, or maybe can you clarify that? I gotta be honest, I don't even know the full rules around that. And also, if somebody's interested in becoming a referee who's watching out there now, what can they do to become a referee?
Sure. I'm going to say that I'm not speaking for the instructional programs of either Maryland or Virginia. I'm not giving any official information or direction on these particular points. so as to avoid any sort of violent episodes with those leaders later on after they've seen this presentation.
That's fair.
So we have a new world. New referees are expected to enroll in an online virtual course that is hosted at US Soccer. The cost of that is $65. After they finish the online course in Virginia, you then have to take a 4-hour on-field practical course on the field working with an instructor as a modification from COVID. Those classes are now capped at no more than 9 referees per field session of 4 hours. Those classes have not been held since mid-March. And so we expect that there's an awful number of people who want to become referees, and finding enough instructors and enough field time is going to be a bit of a challenge. But you can enroll today in Virginia to go take that new referee course. If you were a referee previously, but did not recertify in 2018-19, you can take only the online version of that course. And because of COVID, you will then be allowed to go referee again with a 2021 badge. If you last certified 3 years ago, it's as if you have to take the new referee class all over again. Currently, there is no way to sign up for recertification classes, although my conversations with instructors in the last week or so suggest that that link will be available soon. And that's at the Virginia State Referee Program website. When I looked on the Maryland side, there are no classes that are currently scheduled. But curiously enough, if we have people who are willing to take classes in other states outside of Region 1, you can take a virtual only class and be all set to referee. So every state is in one way or another setting their own standards for how they're going to restart teaching new referees and getting them started. And I can't stress this enough, is that we do need lots more referees, particularly from the playing community, because those people already know and hopefully have a good sense for what match situations are, and it won't be so much of jumping into a deep and dark, cold pool of water, but in the sense of just seeing a different part of the game and helping grow it beyond the sport for the next generation of people who want to play and succeed. The next Izzy Capos, if you will. That's payback, Izzy.
What? I don't understand.
Where can they go to find more information, Jesse? If they want to become a referee, what would be the best resource for them to look up?
Well, if you go to Nico's Facebook page. All right, I'm kidding.
I don't have any information there.
The Virginia State Referee Program has its own webpage, and that's at mdcvasrpsoccerref.com. And there is a page link there for available clinics, which is where you want to go if you want to sign up and become a new soccer referee. I actually have information on my own website at dcreferees.com about how to become a referee, and I'll be happy to help people navigate and how to go ahead and go get started and certified. MarylandReferees.com is the Maryland Referee Program, although I can't speak as to when they'll start having new referee classes available there. But the good thing is once you get certified by any state, you can referee in any state that you want. It's like a driver's license.
And just for clarity, if I'm in DC and I want to get licensed, do I have to pick? Is there rules, or can I just go to whichever state I want to?
You can go to whatever state you want to. You want to go get certified in Hawaii, Matt? Go for it.
I'm the worst ref ever.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, if you want to travel there for business purposes to get certified as a soccer referee, then that's a choice that you can make.
Sure.
Not a bad idea.
And I will say that we have a not small population of people whose kids are playing in these tournaments or playing travel soccer, as well as players in travel soccer, where they sign up to referee, and all of a sudden the cost of playing in the game have just gotten substantially lower, because after they're done playing for the day, they go referee in a different league or on a different field, and they can make pretty good money. So, for example, there's one travel league that I assign, and they're going to be pulling in $69 per match. They worked 3 matches, and that's pretty good money for somebody who doesn't have to change diapers.
And what referee level would that be? Can they get that?
That's a new referee level.
Okay.
Now, I will not assign people who just got out of class to go referee in those top youth leagues, because I don't believe in people setting people up to fail. But within a year or so, you should be able to do the kind of level of game at the youngest levels, as well as being an AR for older age groups, or even on the adult side. And it's a good way to get into defray costs and to learn more about the game.
That's a great point.
You should join our ranks, Matthew.
I think the one and only game that I've actually refed was the DC United Legend. So that last DC United match at RFK between the legends of DC United, it was a very, very anxiety-ridden experience for me. So I have all the respect in the world for what you guys do, because I know it is an extremely difficult job. Yeah.
Sounds like a great experience, though, nonetheless.
It was terrifying, because I was on the side where all of the fans were, but I did get to call Ben Olsen offsides in a 14v14 match at RFK, so that was exciting. But yeah, absolute respect for referees and for keeping the game together and moving.
Appreciate it.
So we don't have any questions from the audience. So Nico, if you have any other points, I think we can start to wrap up and show our end credits.
Yeah, no, I just want to again express my gratitude to Jesse and Izzy. Thank them both for giving their time to come and give their unique perspective on refereeing in general, but also during a pandemic. I mean, these are really difficult times for everybody, I think. Really, there's a lot of anxiety, plenty of anxiety to go around. So clearly it's touched every part of our lives, including the sport that I know we all love. So thank you, Jesse and Izzy, for willing to kind of come and speak to us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the invitation, guys. Just nice seeing you again.
Oh, pleasure. Thanks for having us. Obviously, I want more people to sign up to be soccer referees, because there's always going to be games that are going to be played. And it's a good way to go get some exercise and earn some money. And I think it's been very rewarding on a level of improving my own soccer, in terms of seeing different perspectives on things that I don't have time to think about if I'm also worried about getting a pass or taking a shot on goal.
Awesome. Thank you guys for your time. I'm going to put up our sponsor screen. Before we get out of here. Go. So thank you to our sponsors, B&G Customs, for all of our gear. One Step Beyond Fitness that takes care of us mentally and physically. D17 Athletics, one of our new grassroots sponsors. Davis Designs for stickers, magnets, signs, and Leveling the Playing Field for our equipment as well. Thank you to our sponsors, and thank you to Jesse and Izzy and Nico for coming on the show today. This was episode 13, and we'll see you guys next time.